introduce Kerri Massey.
Thank you so much. I feel like everything that was just said is getting ready to go out the window after you guys hear this. So, gosh, here we are, and this is really intimate. Talk about vulnerability. So I titled this today, Trusting the Path, Embracing Vulnerability, and Finding Purpose. And so I'm going to talk about all three of those areas today, and hopefully you'll have an insight about my story, but also how it has been woven into my 26 years at Holy Angels, and kind of like, at the end of the day, you look back and you realize, after you've looked at kind of what you've been through, like, the dots start connecting, you know, that God had a plan the entire time. So let me just start off with this. You know, every day there's doors that shut on us, every single day. Like, sometimes they slam in our face, sometimes there's a lock you hear behind it, sometimes it's gently shut, and sometimes it's just cracked. And they all were doors that we thought would be some level of opportunity. And so when those doors close, we're really faced with a question, and that is, you know, what are we going to do now? Because with the path that we imagined is no longer there. And then when it ends up being a journey that was never ever expected, how do you respond to that, and how do you handle it? So here's what you do. You trust the path. So just to tell you a little bit about my life, I'll start with my dad. My dad always told me, he said, you can be anything you want to be. Like, I remember him telling me that all through being a child. I didn't really know what it meant. I didn't really, what he meant by it the whole time. And then when I told him I was going to be a social worker, he was like, really? You can be anything you want to be. You're going to be a social worker. You're not going to make any money, Kerri. I was like, that's what I want to be, Dad. So he eventually came around. So just kind of give you a background of my life. I'm a Charlotte native, and I've lived in Gaston County for 20 years, and I've worked here for almost 27 now. And I'm just going to tell y'all, like, I love Gaston County. Like, it took a minute for this Charlotte girl to embrace this county, but I love it. Like, I love it. I love living here. I love working here, raise my child here. It's an amazing, amazing place. And I was just talking to Andrea Stevens about all the amazing leaders and women in this county, and like, we got to band together, y'all. So I went to high school in Charlotte, and I had the most wonderful high school experience. Like, I know a lot of people don't, but I did. I had the best friend group. I was the captain of our soccer team. I was homecoming queen. I was the head letter girl. I dated the captain of the soccer. My boyfriend was the captain of the football team. So I lived like, that movie high school life. And I only tell you this because it's important for what I'm gonna talk about later. But I had this great high school friend group who I'm still friends with today. Like, we talk every single day. And so I just, I loved my life. Like, it was wonderful. And same with college. I went to Western. I found a friend group there. I joined a sorority. I was in leadership of the sorority, and it was just the path that was there. Like, I don't really remember going, I want to do this, and this. I'm going to be this. It just was the path that was laid out for me, and I followed it, and it was what it was. And even my college friends were still great friends today, and it was wonderful. And so I went to Western. I decided I was going to be a social worker, much to my dad's dismay. I thought, I was like, I'm going to be a clinical social worker. I'm going to work in a hospital, because I'm so infatuated by the hospital setting. And so I did my internship at the little hospital in Sylvan, North Carolina, and I loved it. And so I graduated. I came home, and I started applying for jobs. And so back then, in the mid-90s, we didn't have Indeed, so you actually had to write a cover letter and mail your resume in an envelope to the places that were running ads in the Charlotte Observer. So that's what I did. So I sent out all these resumes to to the local hospitals and I heard nothing, like nothing. Nobody called me. Nobody was interested in hiring Kerri, the girl that wanted to be the clinical social worker. So I sort of pivoted and I started I sent out like one or two others. I got one call back, like one, y'all. My very first job out of college was one. And it was with this company called Voca Corporation. And they were group homes who served people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The only one I got.
Wow.
And so I was like, well, here we go. I guess this is what I'm gonna do with my life. No clue what I was getting into. But that was my first clue that that path was being laid out for me. And I had no idea. So I go to work, I loved it. I fell in love. I loved going out to the group homes and the folks that were living there were, I don't know if any of y'all have been to Cherubs before or Spruce Goose, but do you feel like a rock star when you go in there and the residents are like, hey, they're your best friend. That's how I felt every day. Like I fell in love with the field of serving people with developmental disabilities, and I was working with the families at the time in that position, and it filled my cup to be able to really just be there for these families who were walking a journey that I could never have imagined what they were feeling and going through. So I worked there, and I was there about 3-4 years, and I decided that maybe it was time for me to do something different. And I had become really good friends with one of the nurses at Voca. Her name was Shawn Wilson. And we were talking one day, and she was like, I work PRN at this place in Belmont, and I think they're looking for a social worker. It was Holy Angels.
Wow.
Yeah. It was Holy Angels. So I was like, okay. So she hooked me up with our director of social work, and I mailed her my resume. Or maybe Shawn dropped it off. I don't remember, but Lori called me for an interview, and I'm not really sure why I wasn't working this day, but I remember telling her, I was like, I can't. She was like, can you come today? I really want you to come today. I was like, I really can't come today. I'm in workout clothes, and I had my Umbro shorts on, back then. And a t-shirt. That's what I was wearing. I remember specifically. She's like, well, it doesn't matter. It's just kind of informal, just come. And I was like, okay. So I drove to Belmont. I came to her office. She had a couch in her office. I remember sitting on the couch. And we hit it off like we had been best friends for years, like all our lives. And I was like, I have to be here. Like, this is where I have to be. And so, long story short, we went through the process. I ended up being hired October of 1998 at Holy Angels. And I fell in love. And I knew that I was home the minute I stepped foot in Holy Angels. And so I was a social worker. Worked with the families, and again, it filled my cup tremendously. I loved it. And as time went on, I started having the opportunity to grow at Holy Angels. And I'll be honest with you, I just remember my dad always saying, like I said before, you can be whoever you want to be. But I got to Holy Angels, I just wanted to be a social worker. That's all I cared about. That's what was important to me. And then I started having these opportunities for growth and wearing different hats. And I remember I was interested in a program director position at Holy Angels, and so the president CEO decided she wanted to interview me. Regina Moody, many of you probably know her. And I was like, okay, I'm being interviewed by the president and CEO for a program director position, but okay. And I was young, y'all. I was 27 when I started at Holy Angels, and so I was a little bit clueless. So I'll never forget, like, I'm sitting in her office, which is ironically mine now, and she starts asking me these questions, and she was like, well, what are your goals? Like, what is your goal why do you want to be in this position? And it rolled out of my mouth like I had been planning this response my entire life. And I'm just telling y'all, I hadn't. I was a young, dumb, naive girl at the time. And I said, because I want to sit in the chair you're sitting in right now. Just like that. Like I'd planned it my life. And she was like, and she kind of like looked at me like, oh okay. Exactly how she looked.
Yeah, it's kind of occupied.
I feel like at that moment, she was like, I'm gonna show her. And from then on out, y'all, she invested in me so incredibly and threw me, like, she threw me in the deep end and would like call on me to speak in meetings, and I was like, and somehow, you know, I had to figure out how to do it, and she really just, I mean, she really just mentored me and molded me and into that, and then, so I continued to grow, and, in 2018, I'm not sure what I had, but I decided to leave Holy Angels. I was like, you know what? My dad was not doing well. He was sick. I needed to be with him. Megan was young, and I've been a single mom to Megan since 2011. So I was, you know, single mom, and we were walking through a lot of things with Megan at the time. So I was like, and I had the opportunity to work from home. I mean, who didn't want to work from home? So I resigned from Holy Angels, and I knew at the time, like I knew that the path was for me to become, when Regina retired, for me to become the president CEO. But I just, for whatever reason, I needed to step away. And I really thought I was stepping away for good, to be honest. And so I went to work for a software company that is the EHR that we use right now called Thera. I did, and I was gonna be in sales, and so I started traveling, but I was working from home, and within 3 weeks, I was the most miserable person that you could ever imagine. And in between that, sprinkled in, I would get a little call from Regina every now and then. Hey, you ready to come back? Nope. No. And in the midst of it, in the middle of this time frame, one of my friends from college reached out to me, and my girlfriend's from college. Now, like, I'm just gonna tell you, we all went through our college party phase, and this group of girlfriends that I'm still in touch with now, like, yeah, we had a good time. And every year since we graduated, once a year, we would get together and we would go far, far away where nobody knew us, and we would have a good time. So this one girl who's in this group called me one day. She's like, listen, I've been called. I want to start a Bible study, and I've been called to lead one. Will you be in it? And I was like, hang on. Is this Michelle? Is someone kidnapped you? And so we decided to do this Bible study together, and we pulled in our other friends, and like all of a sudden here we are, like the party group now became the prayer group. And so we did a study during that time that talked about Paul's life, and it was just so, like, I can't even tell you the impact it had on me. And so Regina called me again, and she said, I want to take you to dinner. I want to talk. And I was like, okay. So we went to dinner, we talked, had a couple bottles of wine, and I said, I'm ready to come back. And so I did, and I came back. And so that's kind of part of my journey at Holy Angels, and so professionally, I think that I learned how to trust the path, and I got in the way when I left Holy Angels, but in hindsight, maybe I did. You know, God had a plan. So I'm going to kind of go back now to so that's kind of trusting the path, and so part of that path. And I didn't intentionally leave this out, but obviously I have a child. So I started at Holy Angels in October of '98, and I met my husband in November of '98, and through a good friend, one of my best friends I grew up with. Her husband was my future husband's first cousin. Yeah. And so we met, we got married, and we had a child. So we got married in 2000, we had Megan in 2002. I had the most perfect pregnancy, everything was great. Had to be induced, but you know, who doesn't these days? And ended up having to have emergency C-section, and Megan was born. All was great, everything's wonderful. I'm in recovery. I've been there about an hour, and all these people walk in the room, and they tell us, something's wrong with your daughter. We think she has Down syndrome. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't do the testing during my pregnancy because, you know, I was already working in the field, so I knew no matter who I had, what I had, I was gonna love whatever it was. But we were very shocked and taken aback. So we go through the motions, we do all the testing, we go home with her, we still don't know. 3 days into having her at home, I think I have this little baby with Down syndrome, and I'm looking at her, and I don't think she looks like she has Down syndrome, but, you know, that's what we're being told. 3 days later, we get a call, and all the genetic testing came back normal. She didn't have Down syndrome. We were like, hallelujah, let's go, let's move on with our lives, because it's been hell for the past week. But I quickly, so all my friends from high school are my age, so guess what? They're all having children. We're all having our children within a year of each other. So I start realizing very quickly Megan's not hitting our milestones. And, you know, she's not tracking the way that my friends' children are tracking. We go to the pediatrician, and the pediatrician's like, let's just watch and see what happens. And then she's not crawling when everybody else is crawling. She's not walking. You know, all the things that every mom looks forward to with a child. I noticed Megan wasn't doing this. And so that was the day, that was the door for me that slammed in my face. Even after we've been told she had Downs, because when we found out she didn't, boy, that door flew wide open, and I was like, let's roll. But the day that I realized that something, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that something wasn't right for her, like that door shut, and I shut down, And so we started walking through all the motions. We went to many, many doctor's appointments. We had genetic testing with nothing ever. We don't know to this day. I still don't know what happened other than maybe something during birth. I have no idea. So we walked through the school years. You know, Megan had an IEP. She was in a separate class, but some integrated classes. I fought the fight her whole entire school for her to have the things that I felt like she needed to have. Again, God placed the right people in my life. And he placed these amazing neighbors that lived next door to me, who had 3 amazing children, who were my child's age. And when Megan walked through the hardest years of her life in high school, because y'all know, high school is not easy. Thank you. High school is not easy. I mean, it kind of was for me, but that was when I was like, someone died for me, because I knew that Megan wasn't gonna be the captain of the soccer team, the homecoming queen. She wasn't gonna be the head letter girl, head cheerleader, whatever. She wasn't gonna have this friend group that she carried with her the entire, her entire life. But God placed these 3 amazing children next door to us that she grew up with, that grabbed her by the hand and loved her and took her. They went to high school with her. They made her feel like she was a daggone rock star. And they included her in everything they did. And I will never forget this one night, we were at a South Point football game, and we were up in the bleachers, and Megan was in the bleachers. She went down with the kids, you know, the high school kids. And Bo Adams stood down from the front of the entire bleachers where he was in the student section. He was so popular. And he looked up at Megan and he said, "Megan Massey, get down here." And I saw something on her face that day, that night, that I had never seen before. Like, it was amazing. And I knew right then and there, I was like, you know what? She's gonna be fine. And after that, like, she always had confidence. Don't get me wrong, that girl. But I knew that she was gonna be okay, and that, like, she had the right people around her, and they were gonna love her to death. And so Megan went through high school, and I was like, what now? What do we do now? She's graduated. She, you know, she's independent enough to stay by herself for short periods of time, but she's not independent enough to live alone. And I'm like, wow, what am I gonna do now? And now keep in mind, y'all, I work at Holy Angels. And so, I didn't know what I was gonna do. Like, here I am, like, helping, like, watching these parents admitting their children, you know, through their journey to come to Holy Angels. And I'm sitting here as a parent, and I am like, I'm crippled. Like, I have no idea. And so we start learning about these programs that people with disabilities can attend. And so Clemson has one, Western Carolina has one. There's several. University of South Carolina, App, Wingate, a ton of them have them. But we had our hearts set on, and I say we, me and Megan, had our hearts set on Clemson and Western Carolina. And so we started walking through the whole thing, like, Megan's gonna go to college, and it's gonna be great, and she's gonna learn these skills, and she's gonna be able to live by herself. And so we applied to Western, went to orientation, went to Clemson. Western, I'm an alumni. They didn't want they shut the door on Megan real fast for whatever reason. So Clemson, I remember the day, first time we went to orientation, I think there were 400 people in that room, and I thought to myself, well, this is never happening. And, but guess what? They narrowed it down to 20, and Megan got called back in the top 20 for an interview. So here we go, we're trucking into Clemson, we're so excited. And we had the interview, and they're like, the interview was like in October, they're like, we'll let you know in March. And we're like, ugh, that's the most excruciating waiting. And so we got a letter that said come back for an interview, or no, we're sorry, she's been waitlisted. She didn't get in, she's been waitlisted, but you don't have to reapply. So we went through the next year, we didn't reapply, she didn't get in. And y'all, we were devastated. I think I know now I was way more devastated than Megan. Cause Megan was like, Mom, you know what? It'll be okay. I can work at Cherub still. I can still work at Cherub. So she was like, life goes on. And I was, because it was another door that really closed in our face, in my face. And so, so that's kind of like, you know, where that road ended. And I just want to go back to something too, like I had such resentment in my heart because my friends and their children, as Megan was graduating, we didn't know what was happening with her. Their children were going off to college, and they had all these friend groups, and I'm with them. Like, these are friends I'm with all the time. We see each other. I mean, between the 6 of us, we have 14 children, and they all grew up together, and I started becoming resentment, and like, I was pissed. You know, I was going to our functions, and I wouldn't take Megan because I didn't want to feel, I wanted to have a good time. I didn't want to worry about them, and I was making this up in my mind, just so y'all know this. I didn't want to feel like Megan was being left out, and so I wouldn't take her to our friend functions. And one day, we were at a friend thing, and my friends were like, "Why did you ever bring Megan?" I was like, "I don't know. She couldn't come. She's with her dad." You know, I made excuses, and they pressed me, and I finally was like, because she's different, and it hurts me to bring her, and I don't want her to ever not be included, which she had always been included. And they said, boy, are you fooled by your child, because she is just like our children, and our children see her through the lens that we see her through. You see her through a totally different lens. And I was like, oh my gosh, I do, I felt terrible because, y'all, I mean, she's 22. For her first 18 years, I grieved her being my child and the way she was. I grieved it. I was pissed. I remember when she was born, I was like, damn it, God, I do this for a living and now you give me one? You know, I mean, that's where I was. I was so mad and resentful. And so hearing them say that really just changed a lot for me. And then, but I never talked about it. And so this is kind of like the first time I got vulnerable, cause like I'm sitting here in front of y'all today, and like I'm like I might as well just lay it out. So I remember the first time I became like really vulnerable with Megan is anybody here an Alpha Fellow been through the American Leadership Forum? Okay, go through it. It's amazing. It's the most amazing program that'll change your life. So it's a year-long program, and one of the things we have to do, we have to do a 7-minute speech, and it was the second meeting. So I'm in this room with 20 people that I've met once, and we have to give a 7-minute speech, and the rules were stay within 7 minutes or we'll cut you off. Don't tell us things we already know, like where you work, what you do, who you're married to, whatever. And I'm like, well, dang, what am I gonna talk about? Because, you know, my life is my world, and, you know, I'm not a pretty boring person outside of that, so what am I gonna talk 7 minutes about? And so, I talked to my friends and some people, and they were like, you have a lot to talk about. You got a 7-minute speech that will wow people. And I was like, what is that? And they were like, your child, Megan, talk about Megan and how she's inspired you and how she's inspired others. So in 2017 was the first time I ever outwardly spoke about Megan and the journey of her. And I remember after I did it, the people in the room were like, oh my gosh, you're not who I thought you were. The leader of the class said to me, she said, well, I thought you were just some pretty skinny white girl that was in class, and now I realize that you're way more than a skinny white girl. And I was like, oh, she is the leader, y'all. And it just, you know, and she was said it out of love, and like it was funny and all that. She would, you know, it was a great thing. But her saying that to me was like, you know, there's so much more to me than the skinny white girl that she thought I was when I walked in the room for the first time. And I was so glad I shared that about Megan, because it really changed so much. And so I learned from being vulnerable, because that's not something I do easily. I don't think many people do it easily, to be honest. But to talk about my personal life and my journey, when I was told I could do anything, be anything I wanted to be, and I had this great life that, you know, I'm so blessed to have lived, and God gives me a child with disabilities, and now what do I do? You know, what do you do? And so being vulnerable and starting to share my story about Megan changed everything for me. Like, it connected me. It opened a door for connection, because now I was real, you know. People are like, okay, she's real. It helped me realize and admit that I don't have to be in control of everything. And it also showed me that I wasn't alone in my journey. That there were so many people, a few of you are in this room today, that were walking the same journey that I was. But also, so many people that were walking a journey that was so not what they planned. And you had to figure out what you were gonna do next. And so that really was something that changed me incredibly, and what helped me agree to sit right here in front of you. Vulnerability is not easy, but also too, I think as a leader now at Holy Angels, and having the incredible opportunity to lead Holy Angels, I think that, you know, we have 350 employees at Holy Angels, and I think having them see their leader be vulnerable is something that, you know, you were always taught vulnerability is not a strength, but really it is a strength. And being vulnerable I think shows the people that I get to lead every day that I'm real, that I have a heart, and that I understand when they're going through adversity too. And so, finding your purpose. Well, obviously Megan is my purpose. You know, I look back, I got one call back from being a social worker when I graduated, and it was for group homes with people who have developmental disabilities. And then a nurse worked for us who worked for Holy Angels. And here I was placed at Holy Angels. God knew all along exactly what he was planning to do. So it's kind of funny when you look back and you think about those closed doors and how you can see the purpose. And so, you know, when Megan's birth and our realization that she had disabilities was a closed door, it really was something that gave me purpose. And then when I left Holy Angels for literally all, it was like maybe 5 months. And that door that closed made me realize I had a purpose at Holy Angels. And then when Megan didn't get into, you know, Clemson and Western, I was like, you know, what now? I don't know what to do. I don't know, like, where, I don't know. She has a job, she's happy. I'm okay with that because who didn't want to see their child happy? As a parent, that's all we want. We really just want to see our children happy. So that's why really trusting the path for me was so incredibly important, because you really don't know where that path is ever going to lead. But it's so often found doors open in such unexpected places when you have that faith and you trust the path. And so honestly, I'm looking around this room right now, and there's so many incredible people that have been placed in my life for so many different reasons. And there's new people in here that obviously are here. Like, we're placed in each other's path, like, for a reason today. But purpose is also found in the tiny moments, not always the big ones. And even when it slaps you in the head, which I've been slapped in the head, I'm sure you guys, it's okay if you don't find that purpose again right away. You know, when Clemson and Western didn't happen, we got slapped in the head. You know, that was 2 years ago, and we've been trying to figure things out. So I'll leave you guys with this. When doors close, because we know they will, they always do, don't give up, don't lose sight. Trust that there will always be another door that opens, even if it's a little crack, even if maybe it's a window. And even if you can't see what lies ahead right away, keep believing in the path, because it's your path to walk. And the most important thing is don't give up. Do not give up. And keep moving down that path. And so one last thing I'm going to share with y'all is
They let Megan.
This is Megan's acceptance letter to Wingate University. This is why you have to trust the path, because I agreed to do this a while back.
Yeah.
We just found out about this last week. So this was all meant to happen. And so I'm like y'all are like the first people to know this. So trust the path and don't let vulnerability or not being vulnerable stand in your way of finding your purpose. Thank you so much.